Welcome to the JJ Think Tank. Hello and welcome back to another video on the JJ Think Tank. Now, I'm excited for this video. Put some work into this article and into what I will say in the forthcoming minutes. I read this book recently. I completed this magnum opus of Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, the double team, and they collaborated, I think, sometimes throughout their life, and I think this is the last book that they wrote together. I may be wrong, but I think from what I remember, this was the last book, and it's called Anti-Oedipus, Capitalism and Schizophrenia. Schizo. Better to be a schizo than to be a neurotic, that's for sure. Obviously, some schizos are a bit too crazy. They lose contact with reality, and it's a shame, really, because I think a healthy dose of schizo mode is actually good for you, as long as you channel it in the right way. And I think a lot of people who fall into this destructive type of schizophrenia, they just need to form certain habits and perhaps engage in biohacking and in inner pharmacochemical engineering, as I like to call it. They should try different supplements, and this really helps, I think. This can really cure the negative side of schizophrenia, whilst also preserving the schizo flows that grant you freedom. The temporary schizo flows that grant an individual more and more freedom. So this view of mine and the view of Gilles Deleuze and Guattari is much in line with the anti-psychiatric movement, which was, associated with R.D. Laing, a British English, I think, psychiatrist, well, anti-psychiatrist, and Thomas Schass. So it's interesting because I've read one work of Schass's. I don't know how to pronounce this word properly. He was a Hungarian-American psychologist. Schass, I think that's how you pronounce it, Schass. The Myth of Mental Illness, a great book, shows how mental illnesses are devised and created in order to enforce social control. And then the other book, this time by Laing, was called The Self and Others. So all of these thinkers, Deleuze, R.D. Laing, Thomas Schass, Guattari, I guess they have a similar worldview. They look at things in a different light. And I agree with them overall. I mean, some parts of this book were a bit too crazy for me. I was like, what are these guys talking about? But I definitely could relate to some aspects of what they wrote. And I agree with some of their interpretations when it comes to schizophrenia, its link to mental health, expressions of schizophrenia in society, in history, in politics. I mean, I think Trump is a bit of a schizo. Trump is a bit of a schizo narc or something like this, I believe. I mean, a lot of people are trying to diagnose Trump, but there's definitely, Trump is definitely a bit special, quote unquote. Yes, and I have my criticisms of Trump, but I think he's also done a lot of good personally. Definitely in his first term, between the years of 2016 and 2020, Trump was great. I think he broke up the world order, the globalist project, and he initiated this multipolar process. So for this, I commend him. I commend Donald J. Trump. So here I included a diagram that I found, and I think it covers a lot of how I view schizophrenia, schizophrenia, and what the book includes actually as well. So we have the molecular world of biology, the molecular world of chemistry, the microphysics, which is molecular, and these are all sources of freedom in my opinion. Now I don't know, I can't really approach this from the biological perspective. I haven't really. Well, first of all, I stopped studying biology when I was 18, and since then I've never really read any books on biology, so I can't comment. The same with physics, really. I've read a few popular science books on physics. Well, for example, I like Carlo Rovelli. He's a Italian physicist. I think he approaches physics from the molecular level. I think he has this atomic view of physics, definitely. But when it comes to chemistry, definitely I can comment. So I was obsessed with chemistry as a teenager and as a young adult, and since then I've maintained this interest via biohacking, supplementation, and I think obviously supplements, they are molecules, yes, they're substances, they're chemical substances, and they really can impact your mental health if you know which ones to take, which ones not to take, when to take them, how to take them, why you should take them, understanding which supplements you should take, because also you shouldn't waste a lot of money. Because in the past, unfortunately, I wasted some money because I was definitely completely lost. But yes, a lot of these supplements they can help you, and I made a couple of videos about biohacking, about inner pharmacochemical engineering, as I like to call it, inner pharmacochemical engineering. And you can check the videos out. You can find on my channel, and in these videos I share some the supplements that have worked for me in boosting my mental health and channeling my schizo flows in the right way. So yes, and then this microphysical world, microchemical world, molecular world, it's associated with lines of flight. So what do I mean by lines of flight? I view lines of flight as reaching a new imminent plane. I don't know how else to describe it, really. This is a concept, imminent plane of imminence. Gilles Deleuze created this concept, and it's in colloquial language, it's I guess about manifesting. People talk about this a lot. Manifesting. I think a lot of people are deluded about manifestation. They think you can just think your reality into existence. But no, I think it's a much more complicated process. A lot of factors are involved in manifestation. And a line of flight is this manifestation. Like a bird, you fly upwards, yes, you reach higher levels. And then obviously content and expression. I guess content and expression. I guess at this moment in time, I view content as what you produce. So any form of production. In my case, it will be writing, creating these videos, etc. For others, it will be making something, engineering, being an engineer, etc. And an expression is linked to this, I guess. So yeah, I thought this diagram boils down a lot of the concepts into a framework. But now I'd like to share more concepts, more ideas, both my own and those I found in the book, and argue that the unconscious is actually molecular and material, because we have a lot of views about the unconscious. We have the Jungian view that the unconscious is a source of archetypes, yes, hero archetypes, etc. Then we have the pathological Freudian view, I guess, unconscious as Oedipus complex. So I'll talk about this in a minute. The unconscious is structured as a language, so this is the Lacanian view. But I think it's interesting to look at the unconscious in this way, as molecular material. The unconscious is nothing special. There's nothing kind of yes. It's nothing special, as I wrote down here. It doesn't mean anything really. It's simply a tool for social production. There's nothing magical there in the unconscious, really. And instead, it should be viewed as a source of temporary schizo flows and freedom. Freedom. So let's go into my article now. And initially, in the first part of the book, Deleuze and Guattari, they contrast schizophrenia with other neurotic illnesses such as depression, anxiety, paranoia. Now, of the two, you're much better off being slightly schizo than falling into a withdrawn state characterized by neurotic illnesses. 100%, it's better to be a bit schizo than depressed, anxious, paranoid, yes. I mean, this is much worse, personally. And I like what R.D. Laing said about schizophrenia, so I want to read this passage out. I think it's on page 155. 1 second, let me just find this. So yes, this is what R.D. Laing had to say about schizophrenia, yes? So, if the human race survives, future men will, I suspect, look back on our enlightened epoch as a veritable age of darkness. They will presumably be able to savour the irony of this situation with more amusement than we can extract from it. The laughs on us. They will see that what we call schizophrenia was one of the forms in which, often, through quite ordinary people, the light began to break through the cracks in our all too closed minds. Madness need not be all breakdown, it may also be breakthrough. The person going through ego loss or transcendental experiences may or may not become in different ways confused. Then he might legitimately be regarded as mad, but to be mad is not necessarily to be ill, notwithstanding that in our culture the two categories have become confused. From the alienated starting point of our pseudo-sanity, everything is equivocal. Our sanity is not true sanity. Their madness is not true madness. The madness of our patients is an artifact of the destruction wreaked on them by us, and by them on themselves. True sanity entails in one way or another the dissolution of the normal ego. The madness that we encounter in patients is a gross travesty, a mockery, a grotesque caricature of what the natural healing of that estranged integration we call sanity might be. And finally, let no one suppose that we meet true madness any more than that we are truly sane. So that's an interesting perspective, yes. Sometimes, we should ask the question: who defines madness, though? Is the sane life just doing the 9 to 5? you enter your car, you drive for an hour in traffic, then you sit in front of a computer for 8 hours, and then you drive back home for an hour, and that's your life for 40 years. This is called sanity. I mean, come on. Come on, I mean, I don't think so. I don't think that is sanity. That is mad. That is mad. Come on, that is not freedom. So you are slowly being converted into a cyborgian, into a frightening cyborgian. No, we don't want this. So yes, but on the other hand, of course, there are genuinely mad people. They've completely lost touch with reality, right? I mean, we have to agree on some social norms. There has to be some cohesion. Yes, there has to be such a thing as society. We have to act collectively. So it's a fine balance, yes, and it's not easy to achieve. But this is where sometimes I disagreed with Deleuze and Guattari. I mean, in this book, some of the sections I didn't really. I thought firstly they repeated themselves too often, and then some of the sections were just completely baffling to me. I didn't know what they were on about, to be honest. But in general, I got the gist of the book, and I agree that these schizo flows, if they are channeled in the correct manner, then this is a good process. It boosts the freedom of individuals, for sure. So, and I agree with D&G. I'll refer to them as D&G now, Dolce and Gabbana, Deleuze and Guattari. That the Oedipus myth is restrictive. It's a made-up myth. I mean, I believe this Freud pushed this myth, yes, and I mean this is. I don't think this even takes place. I mean, children never really have a desire for the mother, or they don't really have a desire to kill their father. I think this is just made-up myth that is pushed in order to confuse the child and to keep him trapped in a toxic or strange family triangle. Yes, this is my view. I don't know. I don't know why this Oedipus complex is so prevalent in culture and psychology, and it just creates unnecessary confusion where there wasn't any in the first place. And I agree with D&G here, with Dolce and Gabbana, with Deleuze and Guattari. Because this Oedipus myth, it creates a toxic family dynamic that restricts children's freedom. And here, when I was thinking about this, I thought about Erich Neumann. So he is another psychologist, and he talks about how an important part of maturity is to separate from one's parents in a transcendental way. Obviously, it's not personal. It's not a personal thing. It's a psychological process and even mythological. Yes, Neumann talks about this in this way, that the hero's task in overcoming the dragon is not only to overcome the father, but to overcome the mother. Well, not only to overcome the mother, but to overcome the father also. And yes, obviously, every psychologist talks about this, that children need to separate from their parents in order to mature and to become fully fledged adults. Yes. And this is why this Oedipus complex pushed by Freud is so toxic. I don't know. It's just strange idea, really. I don't think this even exists. But anyway, moving on. Let's talk about the unconscious. So, D&G, they reframe the unconscious as material, as molecular, non-figurative, machinic, aimed at social production. Really, they don't imbue the unconscious with something magical or whatever. It's basically a desiring machine. The unconscious is a source of desire, and there's nothing more to it beyond that, really. And for people who are slightly schizo or even more schizo, the unconscious is in contact with the real to the greatest degree, and the real, I think, is the world of matter. Yes, it's the world of chemistry, or chemistry, microphysics, microbiology. I guess a mixture of these three realms. This is an interesting perspective. I think I agree to this. I agree with this. Sorry, I should say. I agree with this. So as it pertains to the schizo, this unconscious, this unconscious, it offers a chance for freedom because the schizo can really become deterritorialized. He can really be in touch with the molecular world, with the micro world, the micro world of physics, microbiology, etc. And as he goes on his voyage, so I began my article with this quote: "The schizophrenic voyage is the only kind there is." As the schizo goes on his voyage, she they are able to discover a lot of interesting things about reality in the form of ideas, thoughts, but then also even money and time, I think, and D&G, they interpret this process in this way, and I found this really interesting as well. That the schizo, he carries his flows into the desert, where he or she, yes, obtains partial objects. This is how they metaphorize the process. And I've definitely experienced this sometimes. And looking around me, I think there are a lot of schizos out there. I mean, I observe people often. So, for instance, in the gym, there are definitely a lot of schizos. They're in their own world, their own raw, intense world, machinic world, where they are striving to uncover deeper layers of reality. And they are carrying their flows into the desert of the postmodern world. Oh yes, the schizo is raw intensity, a machinic atomic factory that dives deep into the molecular, microphysical world of the desert to bring about change. Oh yes, and the schizo, he is in contact with the vitalist biology of the body. I've definitely experienced this. I mean, thankfully, I'm not too schizo. I'm only slightly schizo. I mean, there are some people who are extremely schizo, and they start to be really destructive. They start to stab themselves. Yes, they cut themselves. They completely lose contact. Yes, with reality. But yes, there's definitely a link. People who are schizo, they're more in touch with the body, with the processes of the body, the vitalist processes of the body, and therefore, by extension, the molecular world of chemistry, and by extension, the microphysical world. So this is true, 100%. This is true, and And this is why in our culture we see this phenomenon known as biohacking. More and more people are engaging in biohacking as a way to improve their life. And it definitely helps, 100%. Taking supplements, taking the right supplements, looking after your body, going to the gym, a sauna, etc. This can really boost your mental health and improve your schizo score, to reduce your schizo nature. Because you don't want to be too schizo as well at the same time, do you? Because then you're too mad. You're a bit too mad. So there's interesting perspectives offered by D&G, offered by Dolce and Gabbana, and definitely agree with a lot of their analysis in this book. But now I want to move on to schizoanalysis as it pertains to society, politics, capitalism, and history. So now we're moving from the level of the individual to the collective, yes? And in a political world, we see a division, namely liberalism and conservatism. So liberals, we could argue that liberals are more schizonomadic. They're not paranoiac, because maybe there's a link between conservatism and paranoia, because paranoia, when you are paranoid, you withdraw and you return to what is known, to what is stable, and if you do this too much, it can lead to fascism. I think there is a link here. Whereas if you are schizonomadic, the word nomadic implies that you travel a lot, or you take on different perspectives, you take on other cultural perspectives, and you try to fuse them in a new way, yes? And this is why Dolce and Gabbana, D&G, yes, they see two psychological forces which impact the political world. A nomadic polyvocal use of the conjunctive synthesis, and the segregative and bi-univocal use. So this was interesting. I'm not too sure yet what they mean exactly by this expression, conjunctive synthesis and segregative and bi-univocal separation, yes? So borders, boundaries. So I guess we can see this in the world, yes? There are countries, there are borders, there are boundaries. Whereas conjunctive, the word implies, yes, conjoining, mixing, yes? Mixing cultures, mixing people, mixing nations together. So yes, I guess overall that I think this is true. Yes, over many centuries, perhaps throughout history, this division has always been prevalent. So liberals have always fought conservatives. So, but then again, when we think about history, there are these famous schizo-type figures, and they are often labelled as barbarians. Yes, so we can think of Genghis Khan. I misspelt his name here. Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Alexander the Great, Moses. I'm sure there are many other important historical figures who reshaped the old order. They came in from the outside. I guess Prophet Muhammad, the holy figure in Islam. He was also a schizo barbarian. And they come in from the outside, and they totally reshape the old order. And D&G, Dolce and Gabbana, they constantly associate schizos with the desert, and this was interesting for me. This was interesting because many of these historical figures that I just mentioned, they came from the desert, or they lived in the desert, or they spent part of their life in the desert. So Moses, definitely. Genghis Khan, in Mongolia you have these steppes. So it's like a desert. But even in Mongolia I think there is a desert, Gobi Desert. Napoleon, or perhaps no, Napoleon, he wasn't brought up in the desert. He didn't live in a desert. I mean, he was obsessed with Egypt. There is a desert in Egypt. Alexander the Great, most likely as well. He experienced life in the desert. So perhaps there is some link here, yes, between schizo barbarians who changed the course of history and the desert. Again, perhaps I'm repeating myself here, but DNG, they extract a law from the desert, which I don't know how to put this at this moment in time, but they say there's something strange that arises from the desert, a strange law, a strange machine, a strange law. I guess this is how I interpreted what they wrote. But yes, it definitely made me think. But now, will a schizo barbarian appear on the scene? Will another schizo barbarian pop up and change the course of history? I don't know. Personally, I think that the schizo barbarian is now capitalism itself. So the schizo barbarian has evolved. It's no longer something singular. It's a process, which is capitalism. Capitalism is an economic process, yes. And this is D&G's argument, Dolce and Gabbana's argument, and I agree with them. I thought about this myself before, and they are right, I think. Capitalism is a bit barbaric, yes, and it's schizo. It constantly tries to reach new limits. It goes in fits and starts, it misfires, it grows on its own contradictions, as they say. But in this process, they further decode and deterritorialize the planet, yes. Capitalism is an expansive force. And America, as a country, reflects this capitalist force the most, definitely. And here is, a lot of thinkers, they criticize capitalism. They view it as not as not a solution. It isn't a solution for humanity, whereas others think that capitalism has won. It's over, and we should just try to optimize the capitalistic process, the capitalistic machine. I guess those who serve the machine and those who sabotage it, they are both doing their bit to expand freedom, because as I just said, capitalism, it goes in fits and starts, it misfires, yes, it grows on its own contradictions. So, again, this was a nice meta-level analysis of capitalism by Dolce and Gabbana. And I like this section. So now, a bit of a long video, but yes, I thought it was necessary to talk about this for a bit longer. Before I finish, I mean, this is completely unrelated. It's anecdotal information. I don't know what to think of this at the moment. I don't know much about Hjelmslev, but I'd like to talk briefly about him and schizoanalysis' view of Hjelmslev and linguistics. So Dolce and Gabbana, they give precedence to Hjelmslev. They argue that his linguistic approach abandons all privileged reference as seen in structuralism. And therefore they reject, yes, the linguistics of structuralism, which is associated with Ferdinand de Saussure. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But I've read a couple of books by Ferdinand de Saussure, and I remember they made an impact on me. They made me these books. They made me look at language in a new light. And yes, language is like a structure. The meaning of words the meaning is derived from how they relate to other words in a sentence. Like a word by itself doesn't really mean anything. Once you perform a deeper analysis, yes, the word has to fall into a structure, and only by occupying a position in a structure does the word gain a meaning. I mean, this seems obvious to me, logical and rational and self-evident, but according to D&G, this is wrong. And they argue that Kiemslev he discovered and described a pure algebraic immanence that abandons, yes, all privileged reference, because in the linguistics of the Saussure, there is a privileged reference, yes. In structuralism, there are relations, so there's reference. Well, one word refers to another. Some words are more important in a sentence because they provide more relations than others. So, well, yes, I don't know much about this. I thought it was interesting, and that's why I shared it at the end. Perhaps someone who knows more about linguistics can comment. Perhaps you can enlighten us about this. But yes, I think that's all for today. So before I finish, what does schizoanalysis and the schizo? What does the schizo ask for? What does schizoanalysis ask for? Well, simply nothing more than a bit of a relation to the outside, a little bit of real reality. and how can we continue this schizo process in a healthy manner? By not falling into a void and taking its own process as a goal in itself. So that's key, definitely. Not falling into a void. You have to maintain contact with the outside world. And yes, we are all vibrations, flows, schizzes, and knots. This is what R.D. Laing wrote, I think, or maybe Deleuze, or maybe they both wrote something like this. Interesting perspective. I think there is some truth to this. I guess this is a more materialistic view of a person, of an individual. Theologians will have a completely different view. But anyway, once again, thank you for listening. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it interesting. I tried to cover schizoanalysis, schizoflows, both from the individual level and also the societal level. And overall, this book was decent. Some sections were a bit too crazy for me. I didn't really know what they were talking about, to be honest. But then some sections I could definitely relate to what they were saying, to what they were writing, and I agreed with many of their thoughts and ideas. So yes, better to be a bit of a schizo, I think, than to be a neurotic. That's for sure. But anyway, once again, thank you for listening. If you are a new viewer, like, comment, subscribe. It'll help me grow the channel. If you're an existing viewer, like and comment. I'd like to know what you think. Perhaps you can shed some more light on this topic, and yes, share what you think about what I said. But yes, once again, thank you for listening, and I wish you all the best. Take care. Fire in the hole! Thank you for listening to the JJ Think Tank. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.